everybody, my name is Ryan and I am the Laser Noob. And today we're going to be testing out and see which one is better, baking soda or borax. So all I've got here is some borax that I got at Walmart, some baking soda that I got from Dollar General. And all I have done is I have taken 2 tablespoons of borax, put it in a spray bottle with 32 ounces of water, and 2 tablespoons of baking soda into a different spray bottle with 32 ounces of water. And what we're going to do is I'm going to take a piece of basswood. This is like 2mm basswood. Here I have baking soda written on this side and borax written on this side. The fuck? Alrighty then. Anyway, baking soda written on this side. Borax written on this side. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take the spray bottles, I'm going to soak it, I'm going to take a chip brush, and I'm going to spread the water around on it, let that dry. I'm going to soak this side, take a chip brush, spread the water around so, you know, the mixture around, let that dry. I'm going to do that 2 times on each side. So let it, wet it, let it dry, 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 blah, 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 so on, so on, so on. So then I'm going to put this in the laser and I'm going to burn it. I mean, it's Halloween coming up, so let's do like some kind of pumpkin design or something on this, and we'll do one side on the baking soda, when we'll do another one, the exact same thing on the borax side, and then we can kind of compare and see which one is better, because apparently there's some kind of debate that I've never used either one, to be honest with you, because when I'm doing this stuff, I'm doing photos, things like that. And when you're putting borax, I think it wants to turn everything black. It's hard to do any kind of shading with that. So I don't use it for that purpose, but we're going to see what it does anyway. So let's load everything into the laser. Let's get light burn up and see what the heck happens. Okay, so here we go. Here's our pumpkin that we're going to do. And if we come down here and we're going to right click and we're going to look at that preview. And we're looking at about 18 minutes and 10 seconds. So, I mean, you can't trust that. Anyway, y'all know that. So that's what it's going to look like. That's the areas that we're going to be burning, all the white stuff. That ought to give us a pretty good idea of how this is going to turn out. I am using the Whizmaker L1 36 watt, so I am going to be running this at 300 millimeters a second, and I'm using 25% power. That 25% at 300 on this laser will not go way down into the wood, and because, you know, basswood is plywood, I don't want to hit that glue layer. I just want to do that wood. So, because that borax and the baking soda is not going to absorb into the glue, and you know, that's going to throw it off. So I just want to barely get into that wood and see what this is going to look like. So anyway, let's take that and we will move that up there. And there is our project. And let's go ahead and frame that. And this is the borax side. As you guys can see, let's turn on that air assist. I remembered. And let's get this thing started. Okay, so I did the first test. Now I'm going to have to do another test because I don't think this one came out right. So, number one, here is the baking soda. The baking soda one came out pretty good, but as you can see, it's pretty brown. Okay. Now, on the other side, my borax. Now that is definitely darker, but I didn't get far enough into the wood. I just barely got the surface of it on some parts. So what I'm going to do is, so yeah, there's the borax. There's the baking soda. So a little bit browner, a little bit darker. But I want to give baking soda a fair shot. So I'm going to go ahead and I've added 2 more tablespoons of baking soda. So that's 4 tablespoons of baking soda to 32 ounces of water in the spray bottle. Okay. And I'm sticking with the 2 tablespoons of the borax. I think that's dark enough. I just think that I need to up the power on this a little bit because I did not really get into the wood. So I'm going to redo this. I'm going to do one on separate sheets this time so I can do a side-by-side comparison. But I'm doubling up the baking soda to make sure that that's not the issue. Because honestly, like this, I mean, it doesn't even really look like I put anything on it. I can get that look with my L1 36 watt by Whizmaker anytime I want. That really doesn't look like I've done anything. So anyway, so let's go ahead and we're going to prep 2 more sheets of this, and because I haven't wasted enough material, and we're going to run it again. See what happens. So, one of the things I forgot to mention to you guys about using baking soda in that water, that mixture, to do the test that I'm doing today, is that it tends to yellow the wood. So, come on, let me show you. So, if you're trying to do something, you need to coat the whole piece of wood. Otherwise, it's going to discolor it super bad. All right, so here you can see I have, this is my baking soda one right here. Here's my borax over here. I lift that up. There's nothing here. This is glue, okay? But you can see how that wood is clean. This is just a pine board, okay? This is where I dry stuff. So I take these tiles off of this baking soda one. Okay, I've got all my tiles off. You guys can see where the water has come off the edge and it has turned that pine yellow. Now this is dry. This is completely dry. But that is a drawback to the baking soda, is that it will yellow the wood. So if you're gonna coat just a small area, I would not use baking soda. If you're gonna coat the whole piece of wood, I would use that. Thankfully, this is on the back side of, you know, a project panel that I've got for a map I'm gonna do. So anyway, so yeah, I just wanted to show you guys that, and I just noticed it and I was like, need to mention that. Okay, so we're getting ready to do our second test. This is our second borax sheet, number 2. And what I've done is I've done 2 coats of the borax on this. I'm going to do this at a higher power. The first test on the borax, it didn't really get into the wood. It was most of it was very surface. So I'm going to go ahead and up that by 10%. So I'm going to be running this at 35%. And let's see here. Show you guys. So you can see here, the fill is at 35%. I'm keeping the line at 25 because I liked that line. That came out nice and crisp and black. So I'm just going to up the dark areas, which is around the boo and the outlines of the pumpkin, you know. We're going to up that to 35, get into that wood just a little bit. But on the baking soda, I'm going to keep that at 25 because that actually went into the wood. So that's something else we're going to have to take into consideration when we're doing these tests, is that this was done at 35 or 25% at 300 millimeters a second, and it's very smooth. It's not hardly into that wood at all. Now this was done at the same speed, 25 millimeters a second, 300 power, or 325% power, and oh my goodness, 25% power, 300 millimeters a second. And this one actually is into the wood a little bit. So not only do the different coatings burn different, the different coatings come out with, different shades of darkness. So that's something you're going to have to mess around with and test. So the second one, I'm still going to do 25 on the baking soda, but on the borax, on the new one, I'm going to up this from 25 to 35 and see if I can get into that wood a little bit, and we'll go from there. All right, guys, so I've done 2 tests, 2 baking soda, 2 borax. So this was my first test with the borax, and you can see here I wrote down my speed and my power. I was at 25% power at 300 millimeters a second. That is on the Whizmaker 36 watt, the L1 36 watt. So just for reference. And this has 2 tablespoons of water, and for some reason I had cranial flatulence and I wrote 36 ounces. 2 tablespoons of borax to 32 ounces. Those spray bottles are 32 ounces. So I don't know why I wrote 36. I just old. Anyway, so that was the first one. So there is my borax on that one. The next one, and now here's the reason I did the second test on the borax, is because this first one is barely into that wood, okay? So, which is weird because I burnt this at 25% power, but I did the baking soda at 25% power, and it is much deeper into the wood. So for some reason, the borax is reacting with the laser, keeping it from going deeper into the wood. So that's some tests that you guys are going to have to do depending on what you want to do. So anyway, So that was my first one. So that was 25% power at 300 millimeters a second. Now, my second one was at 35% power at 300 millimeters a second. Now, you can see this one here, this guy is much better than this one. You can see on the first one, all of the light spots all the way around. I mean, like I said, it's very smooth. It didn't hardly go into the wood at all. So 35 millimeters or 35% power was much better. Okay, but with that being said, it is still the borax is a little inconsistent from what I'm getting. So you can see how there's like little light spots here, over here in the bottom of the O. I don't know if you guys can see it on the camera, but there's some light spots in that O. So where the grain in the wood changes, it's a little bit lighter for some reason, okay? So it's like it's not getting all the way into the wood where the grain changes. So that was, it's still better than the original. Whoops. The original. So that's number 2. Number 1, you can see all those light spots really well on that one. Not so much on this one, but they are present, okay? So it's not consistent, the borax. It's very dark, but it's not super consistent. Now, the second test I did, because I wanted to give baking soda a fair shake. The first one that I did not come out very dark. I was like, you know, it's almost like I didn't put anything on there because my L136 watt pretty much gives me that same color after I'm done, that same shade. All right, so what I did is I went back and I took that 32-ounce bottle and I put an additional 2 scoops, 2 tablespoons of baking soda into that spray bottle. Mixed it up really well, and I did one more burn with that. So this one here is 4 tablespoons, and I wrote 36, but it's 32. So 4 tablespoons, 32 ounces of water, and that is much, much darker than the 2 tablespoons. Much darker. 2 tablespoons, 4 tablespoons. So much better. Now, with that being said, this is a piece of basswood that I did with absolutely nothing on it. This is bare wood. I did it at the same speed and power as I did the baking soda. There's nothing on this. And it's consistent, it's nice, it's clean. Now, the baking soda is darker, for sure. Okay. Now, if I compare it to the original baking soda that I did with 2 scoops, the 2 tablespoons, there is not much difference between those two. Now that wood's darker, but the etching at 25 is not very much darker than bare. So now we've got our baking soda and our borax. So, I mean, my final thoughts are, depending on what you want to do, I like the bare wood because I do a lot of photos and I need to do shading on the photos. So I don't want it, I mean, if I put baking soda and then try and etch a photo, it's all going to be black. I mean, because you're burning the baking soda, you know. Same thing, or borax, same thing with the baking soda here. So I do the bare wood because I need to get either some light, some darker browns, and you're not going to get that if you're putting something like this, you know, the baking soda or borax. It's you're going to have a hard time shading because you've got that chemical in there. So yeah, borax, final thoughts, much darker. Okay, much blacker than the brown baking soda. But on the other side of that, although it is darker, it is less consistent because I still have these little white spots where the grain is changing on that wood. Whereas on the baking soda one with 4 tablespoons, it's extremely consistent. Okay, there are no white spots in there. It's super consistent. But remember too, like I showed you a few minutes ago, the baking soda yellows the wood. So here's another good example of that. This is the back of my borax that I got super wet, and it's nice and clean. This is the back of my baking soda, and you can see all the discoloration on there all the way around that, just like on the pine board. So the baking soda discolors the wood. You need to do the whole piece of wood, whereas borax, you can just treat one small area if you want and not have to worry about it. So anyway, I'm not here to judge. I'm just here to do some tests and show you guys. Guys, I hope you found everything helpful. If you did, please like the video. Please subscribe to my channel. And we will see you guys in the next one. Have a great day.